you want to know a secret? There are 5 essential things that you must do before you leave the U.S. or your home country and move to Mexico. I'm Louisa.
And Michael.
And we started this channel to help people who are nearing retirement or who may already be retired and want to move to Mexico.
We've been living here for 2.5 years, and we want to support you in making a stress-free move.
And to begin this new chapter with confidence.
Every day I read about people having problems here in Vallarta, that if they had known these things that we're going to share, they could have avoided having a lot of mental distress.
The first critical thing you must have in place before you leave the U.S. is an address.
Yeah, a simple thing like using a family member's address works for a lot of people.
And if it doesn't work for you, then you can do what we did, and we got a virtual mailbox through a company called Escapees, which we have another video about that here. But the reason you need an address is, unless you decide to cut ties with the U.S. completely, but you need an address so that you can receive mail from the IRS
Yes.
or a bank. Like if you're going to get a credit card, if you do points like we do, and you open a new credit card, they want to mail you that credit card. And they don't really like to mail them to Mexico.
Yeah, it's really critical to have that good address to get all of your documents because it just isn't going to happen here, being mailed here in New Mexico.
No, it's not. And also, you might need to have some medications mailed.
That's right.
We have Express Scripts.
Yeah.
They mail my medicine to my sister, and then I go visit my parents, and somehow we have my sister send it to my parents and we pick it up. But if you don't have an address or you don't use any place like that, you're not going to get some important information. So be sure to do that before you leave the U.S. And there are a lot of sites that people can go to for a virtual mailbox. And yes, there are some that the banks won't accept as an address. And then, like I said, through Escapees that we use, we've had no problem with banks sending credit cards there.
Right. And it's worked wonderfully for us for 3 years, and we haven't had any problems with IRS, banks, etc.
Right. But not just 3 years. We did 4 years in an RV.
Oh, yeah. I almost forgot about that. Traveling around the United States in an RV with this, our domicile address with Escapees.
Right. And that's great. Because once you sell your house and all your stuff, you need an address. At least that's in our experience. Okay. Number 2. The most critical thing, speaking of banks, is you need an ATM card to come to Mexico. ATM, and some people say, I'm just going to bring cash and they'll take my US dollars or my Canadian dollars. Well, let me just tell you this. In Mexico, they use pesos. And so how do you get pesos? You could go to the bank and exchange your US dollars.
Get a poor rate, by the way.
Yes, you get a poor rate. Or you use your ATM card, and when you use your ATM card, you decline the conversion rate, and you get a pretty good deal. Now, our bank, which is Navy Federal, we get reimbursed for the ATM fees. So we don't have any problem with that.
But there are other ones.
Yes, you could use Charles
Schwab. But we always say check with your bank and see if you can find one in your area that will reimburse you those fees.
But you want to do that, of course, before you move. And also, another tip a friend told us, have 2 ATM cards, because if you lose one, you'll need another. Or if the bank eats it, sometimes bank machines eat ATM cards.
Right.
But also, you want to have, sometimes people travel with 2 different banks. A different ATM card for one bank and a different one for the other bank. We have one bank. Michael carries the ATM card, and I carry the cash. So that way we don't have to worry if something happens to one or the other. And Navy Federal has overnighted us an ATM card when ours got compromised. So there is that.
Yeah. And again, you don't have that anxiety of what happens if you wake up without an ATM card.
Some people think, I'll just get to Mexico and open a Mexican bank. Well, you can do that. But we haven't found the need to do that. And sometimes, yes, you have to pay for things with big chunks of pesos. And your bank may only allow you to get $500 worth of pesos at a time.
Yeah, that's true.
So you go 3 times to get 1,500 or whatever you need out of the bank. But it's usually an ATM card. Please know that if you come here with US dollars and hope to spend US dollars, they're not going to take it. Also, people think credit cards. You just use a credit card everywhere.
Yeah, and here's the thing. If you're in Mexico City, we found out that a lot of the places use credit cards, but here in Vallarta, it's very rare. Matter of fact, you'll see signs all over the place that say cash only.
Well, that's usually in the little neighborhoods because the tourist areas, they'll take your credit card at the fancy restaurants and even some of the not so fancy restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, cash only means pesos only. But speaking of credit cards, the third item that is a big deal here is having that credit card. Why do you need a credit card here if we just said you can't use them?
Well, you need credit cards for emergencies. If you have a medical emergency, for instance, the hospitals in here want money up front. And so that way you can hand them that credit card and take a deep breath and get your treatment without worrying about being transferred around someplace looking for, I don't know.
Medical care.
Medical care.
Because they want payment up front. And so you need a cash or a limit on your credit card that will cover that. So the other thing is you need to have a credit card. In our opinion, of course, some people don't do credit cards, but you need a credit card if you have an emergency and you need to fly back to the States for some reason you have a medical emergency and a family member. So there are reasons to have credit cards. We don't use it much here, but we try to use it when we're back in the States because we earn points.
Right. And, having a credit card just gives you, again, you'll have that extra padding to fly, to travel, etc.
Yes. So we expect, again, there's a reason to have an address so the bank knows where you are. And when you use your credit card, sometimes they wonder, where are you? And they may not authorize your transaction. But if you let them know where you are, then they will. Okay, so now credit cards to the fourth item, which is medical related as well. Bring your medicines with you.
Yeah, you know what? Until you get established, finding a doctor here or a clinic, you may not have the exact medication that you're looking for, and now you're having your medical problems because those medicines are starting to run out. So please bring your medicines with you initially, and then immediately start establishing your follow-up care here in Vallarta or in Mexico.
Right. And when you go to your doctor in the States, tell them you're going on vacation and they'll give you a vacation prescription. And then oftentimes here in Mexico, you can get the same medicine, but it's the generic form. So be sure to look that up. And you can Google ahead of time what the name of your medicine is that you need when you get here to Mexico. And yes, they let you bring medicines in your suitcase.
Yeah, we've heard people say, oh, you can't bring it in your suitcase. Well, we have.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a problem.
Exactly. Number five of critical things you must do before you leave your home country and move to Mexico is plan for emergencies, which is in line with the credit card, right, that we just spoke about. But what are you going to do if you have an emergency back home? How are you going to get there? A lot of times it's quite expensive to get a flight at the last minute to go see about taking care of issues back with family. So you need to figure that out ahead of time. Are you going to save some money so that you have money for that airplane ticket? You do want to look ahead of time as to which airlines fly directly to your place. Like we found flying to Portland, where my parents still are, is a 4.5-hour flight on Alaska. Right. They only fly certain times of the week. But at the last minute, we don't have to scramble and say, oh my gosh, how are we going to get there? And which airline are we going to take? And how much is that going to cost? We kind of know all of that already.
Right.
And also you want to learn about Valaris. Valaris is an airline that flies throughout Mexico and to a lot of places in the States. which is surprising.
Yeah, and they have great prices. Some people would list them as an economic airline, but they have great service.
It's like Spirit Airlines, but in Mexico.
Mhm.
But you can fly very inexpensively on Valaris. You just can't take as much luggage. But if you're going in a hurry, that might be a good thing. So check those things out. And also, you want to plan for what happens to you. If something were to happen to you while you're here in Mexico, you want to make sure that you have wills or other estate planning
Yeah,
documents with family members, kids back home, so that if there's an issue, they'll know what to do.
right.
These are things you want to do before you leave your home country.
Yeah, and it just reminded me that even though it probably will be kind of distressing to your family members, give them a good, solid Mexican address. You know, they can Google it, and when they're in country, they can ask around. Once they touch base, and somebody will get you to that location.
Well, and here's the other thing. When we were in Mexico City and I went to the embassy, there was a poor sad lady, who came in saying that her mother had passed away and she needed some help and she didn't know what to do. And she went to the American embassy in Mexico City and they said, we don't help you with that kind of stuff. And so talk to your family before you come. And then when you get here, we're going to do another video on how to take care of those issues so that you'll know when you get here how to make sure that you have a wonderful life here in Mexico. Thank you for watching and being here. We really appreciate you. And we hope that we are helping you understand what it takes to live here and thrive here in Mexico as retired people. So leave a comment down below. Let us know what else you'd like our videos to be about. And we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for helping grow this community.
Hasta luego.
Ciao.